Hello, book buddies. This is Miss Evelyn with a magnificent story for African American History Month. Our story today is the story of Ruby Bridges. The author is Robert Coles and the illustrator is George Ford. This is Ruby Bridges. Ruby was born in Tylerton, Mississippi. Her parents were very poor, but they loved their children and took very good care of them. They worked hard to make sure they had everything they needed. When Ruby's family moved to New Orleans, Louisiana, they realized that the black children and the white children could not go to the same school. They could not receive the same education. So a judge said it wasn't fair and it was against the law. He ordered 4 little girls to go to white elementary schools. Only Ruby went to a school all alone. The other little girls were sent together to McDonough 19, but Ruby went to France Elementary School. That Sunday in church, Ruby's parents prayed so hard. Everyone in church prayed that everything would go well for Ruby. Ruby's parents said, "We must be strong, we must be brave," and they prayed very hard. But when Ruby arrived at the school, there was an angry mob who didn't want her there. And there she is going up the stairs. The President of the United States, Dwight D. Eisenhower, ordered federal marshals to walk to school with Ruby so that she would be safe. Ruby was very brave, but the mob didn't want her there. And some of them took their children out of school because they didn't want them going to school with a black girl. Ruby sat in her class all alone, but she did her work and was very happy. Her teacher, Mrs. Henry, said Ruby was a delightful child. She did her work and studied very hard. One day, Mrs. Henry was looking out of the window and she saw Ruby standing on the sidewalk. It looked as though she was talking to the angry mob. The marshal was close by so that no one would hurt her. They were very angry. When Ruby got inside, her teacher, Mrs. Henry, asked her why was she talking to the angry people. But Ruby told her she wasn't talking to them. Mrs. Henry said, "Ruby, I thought I saw you." Ruby said, "No, Mrs. Henry, I was praying for them." And this is the prayer she prayed. "Please, God, try to forgive those people because even if they say those bad things, they don't know what they're doing. So you could forgive them just like you did those folks a long time ago when they said terrible and horrible things about you." Wasn't that nice of Ruby to pray for the people who were being mean to her? And there's Ruby, a brave little girl, walking to school and walking up the steps. Ruby Bridges finished school and became a wonderful, beautiful, and successful young lady. There she is with the marshals around her going to school. And here's Ruby Bridges with one of the marshals who took care of her when she was a little girl. He said it was delightful and he was very proud to take care of Ruby. This is a picture of Ruby and her teacher, Mrs. Henry. Mrs. Henry was a very special teacher. And here's Ruby all grown up, beautiful, happy, and successful. And that's the end of our story, book buddies. Don't forget, never judge people by the color of their skin. Thank you, Ruby Bridges. And that's the end of our story. See you next time on Story Time with Miss Evelyn. Like, subscribe, and share.